the hell is going on, guys? Welcome back to the Rantin Review Pro Wrestling, and I actually do mean what in the hell is going on in this video. The problem with AEW. This is a commentary video. So after the G1 in New Japan, I took some time off. I did continued my 30-day Raw challenge, which ends next week. I've also watched Dynamite and watched Rampage, and I actually did watch a little bit of Impact for those of you who've been asking me to watch about it. But one of the things I've been watching the most is the YouTube space and Twitter and social media in general and the wrestling community. And it's like, it's weird because like all of a sudden, like over the last 3 weeks, there's this flood of stuff going on in these videos and posts and blogs and articles about that are all like some variation of AEW sinking, AEW is going down the toilet, 10 things that there are signs that AEW is about to go bankrupt. Is AEW where WCW was? And you know, I mentioned this in jest a couple weeks ago on this video, not really taking it seriously, but it appears that a lot of people are actually taking it seriously. So I'm going to look at that in this video and give my thoughts on it. But before we get into that, of course, as always with YouTube loves its algorithm. It loves the like button, and it loves it when you click it. So if you are enjoying the video content I provided on Rantin Review Pro Wrestling, be sure to hit the like button, subscribe button, and the notification bell. And be sure to share this video on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Reddit, or wherever you talk about pro wrestling and sports entertainment. And now let's talk about the problems with AEW. Now, right off the bat, I'm going to say there are problems with AEW. Obviously, most of you guys who are watching this video probably already know about the things that have been reported. They have some worries, of course, over Discovery and whether or not they're going to be re-upped for their TV deal, which I think they will be because they're one of the highest rated shows on TBS and TNT, but whether or not they're going to get a bump in pay when the TV deal comes up from Discovery. So that's a big question. We have the CM Punk situation calling out Hangman Adam Page, and that kind of being squashed, it seems, on this past week's round of AEW television. The whole situation with Eddie Kingston and Sammy Guevara getting in a physical altercation, which was essentially Kingston slapping Guevara, and that was about it, and then exchanging some heated words over, you know, just stupid stuff. And this has spawned on all of these videos. It's just, my YouTube feed is inundated with videos about, and it just came like, again, the last couple weeks, it's just like all of a sudden there's all these videos about AEW's collapse, and I'm a bit baffled by it, but then again, I'm not so baffled by it. Now, are these problems? Yeah, these are problems, and does Tony Khan need to kind of tamp down on some of this stuff and, you know, kind of correct the ship in some aspects of what's going on with AEW? Yeah, that's also concerning the booking. I'll talk about the whole situation with the CM Punk Jon Moxley situation, the world title situation for All Out in the main event, and how that's a little bit weird. And this is 2 pay-per-views in a row where the card, it's a little bit strange. We had the same issue with Forbidden Door. So there are issues with AEW. Let me make that clear, that I'm not saying there aren't any issues, but the issues with AEW are not unusual issues for any wrestling company, especially one that's in its 3rd year. The number of backstage fights and incidences over every wrestling company throughout history does not mean that the company is about to go out of business. It doesn't mean that the train's heading and derailing and going into the toilet. There are other reasons that AEW might be having that problem in the future, but this stuff is not, no. I mean, backstage scuffle between Sammy, which again amounted to Eddie Kingston slapping and Sammy Guevara. Oh my God, there's all this. Do we not forget that not too long ago, Chris Jericho and Brock Lesnar got into a fight because Jericho tried to get into a fight because Jericho thought Lesnar opened up Randy Orton the hard way on a SummerSlam. How many incidents? Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels, Vince McMahon with various different wrestlers, the Ultimate Warrior, Randy Savage, on and on and on and on. The WCW stuff, the Jim Crockett promotions, World Class Championship Wrestling, the UWF had issues. Mid-South had backstage issues. ECW had backstage issues. A lot of these companies went out of business, but those weren't the things that caused them to go out of business. Most of it was financial. WCW went out of business because of finances. ECW went out of business because of finances. World Class is a little bit different, but it was also finances. WCW finances, Jim Crockett Promotions because of finances, the AWA because of finances. A lot of wrestling companies have gone under because of finances. So if the finances are good, I don't really think we need to be doing the whole 10 signs that AEW will be going down the toilet in 2023. But there's something a little bit deeper to this. There's something a little bit deeper that I did want to talk about, and it's something I've talked about for those of you who have been following my channels for a long time, both this one and the prior Rassslin Rantin channel, know I have talked about this for a long time. There are a lot of people who were just WWE fans, and it's fine to be a WWE fan. I have no problem with you being a WWE fan, but there was this whole strand, especially in the mid-2010s, when New Japan started becoming popular, when Ring of Honor started becoming popular, Impact had a bit of a resurgence, and all this, of course, led up to AEW, that there were these people who were really into that stuff. You kind of knew that they really weren't. They were WWE fans who were upset that WWE was bad, so they, either in the cases of New Japan a lot, I noticed because I watched a lot of these people talk about this stuff, pretended that they were watching New Japan, or pretended that they really were into Ring of Honor. And even now, they may watch AEW, but there's one key thing that if you notice and you'll notice this when you see a person like this and you listen to them talk, everything they talk about those promotions was not about those promotions. It was about a relation to WWE. 2016, 2017, 2018, their big interest in New Japan and talking about New Japan shows wasn't really about New Japan. It was about the fact that the Elite were taking shots at WWE. Same thing with AEW, same thing when Impact would do it. And that really is the interest. So it wasn't so much that they were actually fans of these promotions, it was the fact that they were kind of watching these promotions and supporting these promotions and talking about these promotions in spite of WWE, which is what they really wanted to be better. One big sign of that is when you hear somebody say, well, all this competition is good because it will make WWE better. Not that we have other great wrestling stuff to watch and other great shows to watch and all these wonderful wrestlers and performers and storylines and things that you can't see and can't experience in WWE. The main focus is because these things are now popular with a certain segment of the wrestling audience that's growing, that'll force WWE to get better. I also don't think it's a coincidence that this all started ramping up over the last couple of weeks when Vince McMahon stepped down as CEO of WWE, and most importantly, the creative aspect, and then Triple H stepped in. And now all these people are acting like WWE is in Attitude Era 2.0 when, truth be told, and I am finishing up my 30-day Raw challenge this coming week, the changes and improvements in WWE have been marginal. They're just making a competent show now, but there's still a lot of things that personally, are not my cup of tea for WWE. There's not like this wholesale change that it's like 50 times better than it was 2 months ago. In fact, WWE is WWE. I said this before, there's going to be changes, there's going to be improvements because Triple H is booking, and his booking, if you look at the NXT Black and Gold, was always made a lot more sense than with the stuff that Vince did. But a lot of the other stuff that is WWE stuff is still going to be WWE stuff. But that doesn't stop people from acting like it's the second coming of Christ, and that you need to, I'm going to need you to hop on board with this, and people saying things like that, and of course that then turns into, well, now that WWE is good, we don't need that New Japan, we don't need Impact, we don't need Ring of Honor, we don't need any of that AEW, and we're just waiting to see who's going to jump from AEW back over to WWE. There's been a lot of that as well. It baffles me because the wrestling industry is so strange. Like, compare it to like the video game industry. Imagine like if Nintendo ruled the video game world for a long time, especially in the 80s and the early 90s, and then PlayStation and Xbox came along. But imagine if video game fans were like, well, we're just going to play PlayStation and Xbox hoping Nintendo gets better. And then as soon as Mario 64 came out, then we're not playing Tomb Raider anymore, I'm not playing Halo anymore because Mario's better again. And it's like, they didn't do that. And if they did do that, the video game industry would be a lot poorer. You'd have no Last of Us, you'd have no Halo, you'd have no Gears of War, you'd have no God of War, all of these things that Sony and Microsoft and other developers made for those platforms, Mass Effect, Dead Space, all of those great franchises and tons more, don't happen if you only have one company that's the big dog and then everybody else is the small ones, and the fans just go, well, it's not Nintendo, so I'm not going to pay attention to it. Of course, it does exist, and wrestling is not the only genre where this exists in, but wrestling is I think one of the ones that shoots itself in the foot so much by a lot of the community and the industry kind of wanting to have this one above all kind of thing. And even though pro wrestling and sports entertainment are very similar, they're not exactly the same. The pro wrestling world is the larger world of everything else. It kind of encompasses sports entertainment, which is a version of pro wrestling, but there's still old school pro wrestling. There's different cultures that have for different styles of pro wrestling. And as a person who is a fan of pro wrestling, I don't want to go back to the 17 years that we had where it was just one company that could draw more than 3,000 people, and everybody who was at any other company, all they were there for is just to get to the WWE. I don't want to see that again. But there are a lot of people who probably do, and that is to the detriment of the wrestling community. I also feel there's a bit of self-fulfilling prophecy going on with this stuff, that again, just the amount of it that's ramped up over the last couple of weeks. And I think a lot of that is a lot of the current fans and the current people who are doing this from this generation really wanting their own Monday Night War. They want to relive the Monday Night War. Now, I'm of an older generation than most of the YouTubers and podcasters that you're going to see out there. So I lived as a teenager and a young adult through the Monday Night War. This current phase we're in with AEW and New Japan and WWE and all this other stuff, it's not the Monday Night War. It's very different. You can't even really compare them, but a lot of people want it to be the same way. And because of that, knowing the history of the Monday Night War, once WWE turned the tide, then that meant WCW went down. So of course now that WWE has turned the corner, now AEW, that means they're gonna have to go out of business just like WCW did. And people are gonna push this narrative. And all I'm really gonna say in this video is I'm not gonna push that narrative. I will talk about all the problems that WWE has and the problems that AEW has and give criticism, and we'll talk about with All Out this week because there's a lot of criticism to be had in the build to All Out and some criticism that All Out is getting that it doesn't deserve. But that is for another video. I want to know what you guys think about this. Do you think that AEW's problems are that significant that the company is going to go out of business in the next 2 years? Or do you think that this is just what happens in every single wrestling company? People fight, there's egos, there's people who are prima donnas, there's people who hate other people, there's little jabs and barbs sent back and forth on camera, behind the camera. There's problems with management. This is what happens with pretty much not only every wrestling company, pretty much every company that exists in the world that has more than 10 employees. So I want to know what you guys think about that. Is AEW about to collapse, or is this some members of the wrestling community really, who again are really always have been WWE fans, really wanting to see the Monday Night War storyline return to, but this time instead of WCW going out of business, to follow the storyline, it has to be AEW going out of business, and we don't need them anymore now that Hunter's in charge and doing great. So let your voice be heard in the comment box below. Until next time, I will see you guys here for more news, rumors, and commentary on the Rantin Review Pro Wrestling. Have a good day.